Hei folkens. I går kveld så hadde jeg anledningen til å sitte ned og slå av en prat med John Linneman og Audun Sørlie fra nettstedet og YouTube-kanalen Digital Foundry. Og vi gjorde et opptak av det, over en time langt, som jeg tenkte å presentere til dere her på Spill.no. Formatmessig så er ikke dette noe vi vanligvis holder på med, intervju og sånt, så det ble en ny ting for meg, men jeg følte det fungerte godt. Og jeg vet ikke om dette er noe vi kommer til å gå videre med frem i tid. Det hadde vært kjekt å få andre med på lignende intervju og sånt. Og hvis dere er interessert i det, så må dere bare la meg få vite det på en eller annen måte, så skal jeg prøve å få andre folk i intervjustolen og lage flere sånne videoer. Så det var, hvis dette blir en serie og sånt, som en innledende episode til noe nytt, så kunne ikke jeg hatt bedre gjester enn John og Audun. Det var en, som dere vil se, øyeblikk, en kjempekjekk kveld, hvor vi snakket om alt ifra Digital Foundry, hvor det kom ifra, og John og Audun sin bakgrunn, sine respektive bakgrunner, og Fantonald, innom Donald Duck-spill og Fantonald, litt innom hvordan vi snakker om spill, hvordan sosiale medier snakker om spill, og hvordan det ofte kan virke som at det er veldig mye negativitet rundt spill online. Og videre så snakker vi om min favoritt av deres satsinger, som er DF Retro, og hvor den serien er på vei hen. For de som ikke vet det, DF Retro er en serie med filmer som ser tilbake på spill som som er av interesse, egentlig. Alt fra Doom, Quake, Soul River og det måtte være. Så jeg hadde det veldig gøy, og jeg har ingenting videre å si enn vel bekomme. Vær så god. So, we're here with John and Audi from Digital Foundry. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you. Good to be here.
This is a big deal for me, as I've said to John already, as being a big fan of Digital Foundry. It's great to have you guys here.
Thank you. It's great, actually, because it's the first time I've been in a video chat with two people located in Norway at the same time.
That's right. So even though this is a Norwegian interview and there are two Norwegians, we will be speaking in English. So
yes,
you can blame me for that. I'm sorry, my Norwegian is it's not very good.
We're also separated by mountain, Audi, a pretty big one.
Yeah,
and
we're pretty much on some. Well, you're not too far. You're in the western part, right?
I'm in Haugesund, yes.
Haugesund, yeah. So you're in the Vamp territory.
Oh yeah, very much so. That's gonna go straight over John's head, but
yeah, he is not familiar with Norwegian folk music so much. Maybe we'll eventually introduce that to the channel, but
it's something that you have to be eased into a little bit. So
it's a very good band. I actually seen them live quite a few times, and I do enjoy Vamp. So
yeah, me too. I'm a big fan of them. I mean, it's.
Well, you have to.
I have to be. I'm
do you want to be kicked out of Haugesund? Like,
I'm originally from Bumlo, and there's no other way. So yeah, guys, I know you, but I'm not sure if everyone watching this video do. So if you want to just sort of introduce yourself.
Who goes first?
John, you go first.
All right, so yeah, I am John Linneman. So obviously, I've been at Digital Foundry since 2013. So it's been a while now. Jeez, time really flies. But yeah, we've been over there doing all kinds of stuff. Obviously, it started with, well, maybe not obviously if you haven't kept up with it, but we do a lot of technical analysis of video games, looking at everything from the basic performance of it to discussing things with developers, to sort of more behind the scenes features, and then of course stuff like my favorite, which is retro coverage, which is DF Retro, which is sort of a combination of history and technical look at classic games. Yeah, so that's kind of what we're all about. and it's
Yeah, no.
good stuff, man.
How about you, Audi?
Well, you know what I'll do? I'll actually answer this part in Norwegian, just because John has heard it so many times.
Go
But
for it.
yeah. Så jeg er Audun Sørlie, og er originalt fra Norge, da. Men jeg har for det meste i karrieren min vært i USA og Japan. Så jeg har jobbet med spillproduksjon, videospill, musikk primært, men også preservasjon og nye spill med et kompani som heter Sakai Project. Og de siste årene så har jeg kommet tilbake igjen til Norge og blitt med på Digital Foundry primært med DF Retro, men også det nye DF Weekly-programmet.
Yeah. And we'll just jump back into English like nothing happened. John, I've been aware of you for years now, probably since you joined Digital Foundry. That's Richard Ledbetter started that. Am I correct?
That's right.
And he wrote for Sega Saturn magazine, as I've heard you talk about, because I didn't have access to that when I grew up. But so there's a long history there, and as for Digital Foundry, what I found to be true is that whenever a video game releases, sort of a lot of people hold their breath to wait what's the verdict from Digital Foundry. And well, you know, it is what it is. But I've also seen lately that there's probably been people doing this for a while, but I've just started noticing more people are doing the frame rate analysis and stuff like you do. And I guess there's only so many ways to do that coverage because it looks very similar. But like for me, Digital Foundry sort of started it, and I don't know if that's something you guys think about or over there or.
I mean, you know, that's the thing is we've been in the last few years, I'd say we've been increasingly creating content that's not just focused on those numbers. So when Digital Foundry first started, it was actually just focused primarily on those numbers. I mean, that's what Richard was doing back in 2007 or whatever when he first launched the site.
There was no voiceover even. It was just numbers, literally.
It was an article with the backing video for it, and you know, it had very rudimentary software at that time. It was very early. So the user experience, as I understand, with the original version was pretty bad. It was actually like a command line driven thing. So
all right. Did that stuff appear at game trailers back then, or has it always been Eurogamer related? Because I sort of used to hang out at 1UP and game trailers a lot, but that was sort of how I came to know about Digital Foundry. I think was through either bonus round or something like that.
I can't remember.
That might not be.
I don't remember. See, because back then, like I was also a fan of the information Richard was putting out. Mainly because back then those numbers mattered a lot, I'd say, like during the PlayStation 3 era. Because a lot of times you'd have a game that was just not very good on one platform or the other. It doesn't happen nearly as much these days, thankfully, but it used to happen a lot back then. So I was always curious to know like what it was. So I kept an eye on that. And then, you know, when I moved to Europe in 2013, that's when I joined up. I quit my other job, which I've been in the computer, you know, IT industry, I guess you could say, doing all kinds of stuff for so many years before that. Like, you know, I started working through when I was in university as well, but I probably started doing this stuff in like 1998. So before I was even finished with high school at the time, that's when I did my first kind of like assistantship in an IT department. And then I studied, you know, like computer information systems and programming in college and ended up doing a lot of that stuff for years. But when it was time to move to Europe, I left all that behind and joined DF because Richard had an opening. I wanted to try doing something more fun that I was passionate about, you know, and it just kind of worked out that way. We kind of built it from there. And it's 2015 when we moved to video. And ever since then, I've just been, you know, I love doing those big features where it's not just about performance metrics. You know, that's the stuff that's most satisfying to me. So it's really kind of just a mix. You know, I just like to talk about games. I like to talk about technology, and I like to present my findings and edit videos around it, like all that stuff together. So Um, yeah, I think there's plenty of room for others to do this as well. Because
Mm.
as long as you have a unique voice, it's definitely worth putting your stuff out there.
Yeah, and you guys, I mean, the way you talk about games, and especially, I've been, when I was doing some work around the house earlier today, I had some of the old DF retros going on. And when you go through, like, Doom across all platforms or
Oh
stuff
yeah,
like that, the way you talk about it isn't like when you're talking about least playable to most playable. You're not saying best to worst, because there might be something good going on one of the versions that don't necessarily feel great to play, but there's something special about them. And I really like that angle of coverage, because there's a lot.
yeah,
It's very easy to be negative about games.
it
You see it you
is.
see it everywhere, and sometimes. As I've seen you've talked about like games like Balan Wonderworld and stuff like that,
Mhm.
where it's so hard to be optimistic or not optimistic, enthusiastic about a game that, you know, maybe it's not the best game in the world, but it at least deserves some people talking positives about it, you know.
Yeah,
But
I agree a lot.
it's we'll get back to that. But I sort of sidetracked there, because that's a
I think
passion of
you're
mine.
making a good point though, because that's something a lot of us we really try to do is focus on the interesting information about something. It's not so much about just damning something by saying it's terrible, or
Hmm.
most of the time. I try to, because I respect what goes into this stuff,
Yeah,
and
I
since
mean,
I've done software development myself, I know, and this stuff is way beyond what I was doing, obviously, but I know how difficult it is to like finish something,
yeah.
put it out there, giving it to the public versus giving it to the production people. It's a different thing, but it's still that sense of like, when you know what goes into making stuff, it really changes your perspective on it. And I know Audi obviously has the same stuff because he's been producing and working on stuff for so darn long. And it's like, I feel like all of us kind of come from this place of really trying to appreciate, understand the creation process and the challenges people face. And, any critique that we level, most developers are well aware of those issues.
Mm.
It's not like it's a big secret. It's so I I really want to move the conversation in a different direction. I really hate this pseudo popular lazy dev Reddit
Yeah.
I
Oh, yeah.
usually
Oh,
see
yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
floating around sometime because it's so not true.
I mean, at the end of the
Uh,
day, there's been people working on this stuff for years and years. I mean, video games aren't made in a day.
no, they're
Unless it's a
hard.
Phoenix game.
Unless it's a Phoenix game.
Unless it's those games, yeah. But yeah, I mean, that's the sort of the way that I want to talk about games as well. When we do
That's cool.
coverage, I don't want to bag on games just because even though, and now I'm gonna use that word, even the worst game I've played has something going for it. Usually,
So you've
for
never
review.
played you've never played Crazy Frog Racer 2?
No, I haven't.
All
I,
right.
Not yet.
Nah, okay.
We'll send you a copy.
Yeah. Audi, you've been around for
Yeah.
a long while, and
Mhm.
somehow I've just recently become aware of you.
Well, I think most Norwegians in general have felt this way for a long time now. As I've joined Digital Foundry, I've gotten quite a lot of messages from people in Norway. And the thing is, I haven't even lived here for long since 2004. So, and I never, I was never part of the collective up in Hamad or anything like that. That was before this because I'm old. But yeah, I mean, I started my career. Technically, I started it back in 2001 because I was an intern at Funcom.
Yeah, I've heard that story. It's a great
Yeah,
story. But-
and they were not too happy with me because all I cared about was this little IKEA shelf full of Sega CD games and stuff they had worked on, and Anarchy
Understand?
Online and like Conan. Who cares? I want to play Fatal Fury Special on Sega CD. And
Understandably.
they didn't care about this,
Yeah.
at least at that time. But yeah, so I think the reason why most people haven't heard of me anywhere. It's just I never established any career or any, most of my stuff was quite quirky in Japanese. It was either like video game music productions or PC 98 stuff, or I don't mean Windows 98. I mean
No.
the old Japanese
Yeah.
computer, the NEC PC 98, and things like this. So I just never had any connection to Norway's, because the Norwegian game community, as it became, is extremely creative, very intelligent, but it's also quite young. So by the
Yeah.
time Hamar and stuff started up, I used to go up there sometimes because I have a friend that went there. His name is Eirik Sørlie, and he's the Spelunky composer, and he was up there. So I went up and I visited, and when people ask like, "Oh, what do you do?" It's like, "Well, right now I'm writing like this anniversary book for Square Enix Japan." They were just like, "Who are you? Why are you doing this?"
Yeah.
So that was kind of funny. And then GDCs and stuff too was just kind of like, apparently there's another Norwegian in San Francisco right now. It's like, who is he? We must find him, because there would be only, can only be one, basically, if you're Norwegian.
Yeah, it's a Highlander.
So this is why, pretty much. Great series. But yeah, so this is kind of, I was in the US, and I lived in Brazil, and I lived, worked in Japan and stuff like that. So this is why I don't think any, Eirik knew who I was. That's pretty much it. So, but now joining Digital Foundry, it's definitely changed, because I've been recognized outside, even though I'm wearing a Bubsy mask. So I don't know how they know it's me.
I love that Bubsy mask.
Yeah, of course. So yeah,
I think that Bubsy mask might be like an indication that you are who you are, because I don't think a lot of other people are gonna walk around with Bubsy mask. I don't love that game.
Maybe.
So
the stop recording button is down here.
Yeah. No. When you started showing up on Digital Foundry, I was like, it took me a little bit while to find out that you actually were Norwegian. That was you hide it well. I don't know if it's because you've traveled so much, but so I looked you up.
No, I just watched the Ninja Turtles.
Oh yeah, all right. Yeah, that'll do it. So I looked you up, and I found some articles you wrote. I don't know, I don't remember where, but you were talking
it was probably
about
Destructoid, maybe.
Yeah, it might have been,
because I used to work for Destructoid.
Yeah, but it was also about like pre-release build of Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck in World of Illusion, which was a game that I played a lot when I was a kid.
Yeah, that would be Hardcore Gaming 101.
Yeah,
and
that's where I think it was.
Just a short segue there, like, because that article, because I used to write these Hardcore Gaming 101 articles that were quite large. And that was kind of my specialty for a long time. And I think that's where he actually first discovered me without realizing.
Because he used to read. The first place I ever wrote anything for.
Yeah, you were there too. So we both were there. We just didn't realize.
Ironically, the first place I wrote anything was on Destructoid, but that was on the community pages.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I was part of the team for a while at Destructoid back in 2010. So yeah, but yeah. So for the Donald Duck thing was interesting, because I had made a knack for just doing these large retrospectives and doing them officially, because I'd worked with like Jackie Chan's management to do the Jackie Chan article. I had talked to like developers and stuff across a lot of games. And then for the Donald Duck article, I talked to the, who was the publisher at the time? But it was the Donald Duck & Co. magazine in Norway, still ongoing. And at that time it was weekly. Yeah. So I contacted them, I told them who I was, and I went into Oslo to have a meeting with them, where the idea and the plan for the longest time was that weekly there was going to be, a chapter at the end of the magazine talking about those games. And that's how it was going to be published. It wasn't a Hardcore 101, Hardcore Gaming 101 article.
Yeah, it was,
and then, so I actually I got access to the archives up. It's not in Oslo, but it's a little bit further. I think it's Lillehammer, or at least at that time it wasn't Lillehammer. It was like an archive of Disney stuff. So I got up there, I could look at like some Donald Duck stuff they had, and got a lot of access. It was great. They put me in touch with other people within Disney. And then at the very end of all this, I showed them the article. It's like, oh, like we cannot clear any of these rights. Like there are too many things in here. There's
Yeah.
too many companies. So what you should do is just go to your magazine, like your video game magazine, just put it there. We don't care. You know, it's a good article. So we don't want to tell you could do this and then not do it. So that's how it became a hardcore gaming 101 article.
Yeah. Speaking of Donald Duck and Co. I was actually thinking about because I was gonna play Soulstorm, the Oddworld game last night.
Yeah.
I was like, my favorite game in that series is Stranger's Wrath, and I think it was like, when did I learn about Stranger's Wrath? And I was like, I think that was like they had like a full size ad in one of the Donald Duck and Co. magazines, because that was sort of how I learned about games, because they weren't marketing them on television so much. You know, I was either reading about them there or in like dedicated gaming magazines. So
that was an institution, that magazine, because it was actually the highest selling comic book in Europe. Like in all of Europe, it sold more than any other comic book weekly. So I mean, it was, you know, it was more important to get into that than with ads, at least more important than the newspaper, because more people would see it. So I mean, Donald Duck and Co. was so much part of my childhood.
I can really see why those Mega Drive games were so successful in Europe then. It was like
the Disney games in general were huge here. I mean,
like my dad has like my dad has stacks and stacks of those comic books, and we have them at our boathouse basically. It's
cabin.
My cabin, my place where I go. And my kids read them, and I read them, you know, Don Rosa stuff when they grew up. And Donald Duck is pretty big here, John, as I'm sure you've been told.
He's a hero. You know, he's an intelligent hero, which is why I wanted to make that article, because when I lived in the US and I talked about Donald Duck, I talked about a different character. You know, they only talk about basically the cartoon version, which is great. But you know, I had all these like memories of Donald Duck being a bona fide hero.
Yeah, I was really surprised with this stuff as well. I only really learned more about this because a friend of mine in college was really into all of this stuff, despite not growing up in Europe. And so he kind of introduced me to some of that. But you know, and then I moved over here and started talking to people like Audi, and you really realize, oh yeah, this was a true institution.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because it taught you morals. And like I learned a lot about just being decent from the Uncle Scrooge and Donald Duck comic books, because it was great. You know.
And if you're down on your luck, you could always get a job at the what is it, Margarinfabriken?
The butter
factory, being paid nickel an hour. Speaking of Donald Duck. Suggestion for DF Retro is Going Quackers.
Yes, I love that game.
Yeah,
that one's interesting, isn't it?
I don't hear a lot of people.
Versions.
Yeah, I don't hear a lot of people talk about it, but it's a pretty decent game. I really liked it.
Yeah.
That's a really good game. I mean, the Dreamcast version / like. The Dreamcast version.
I forget the split, but yeah, there's like
Dreamcast and N64.
Very different versions of that game.
Yeah, PlayStation 1 is a bit different, and then you have the GameCube version, which changes things further.
Yeah.
Then of course you have the rather excellent Donald Duck Advance that came out on Game Boy Advance at the time, which is kind of like a continuation of the Master System games. So yeah, I spent a lot of time on those games in that old article. And that article actually, when we did Quackshot as a DF Retro Play.
Yeah,
that was
and we referred so much to that article that basically I went into my portable hard drive, found the source files from my article, recreated it, and you can download it if you watch that video in the description. So,
that was awesome.
Yeah, Quackshot was sort of my first exposure to Donald Duck in video games, and
what an exposure too! Like,
what an amazing game.
It's a strangely structured game looking back at it, because you have to like start one level and then you have to come back to it later when you got the stuff.
That's weirdly forward looking.
Yeah, it really is. And I haven't checked it out I have my PlayStation 2 hooked up right over here. I'm gonna check out the and I don't know what his name is in English, but it's
You mean Fantonald, right?
Fantonald, yeah. Because I
so
remember that game
that's
being good, but it was like
it's
cel-shaded.
all right.
Yeah.
Yes, that was only released in parts of Europe. It wasn't even all of Europe. It's Scandinavia, Italy, and France.
Mm.
And it's a 3D action-based game, like what's it called? Like character action game.
Yeah,
Like
it's a sort of like it's sort of like a Jack and Dexter. No, not Jack and Dexter.
Yeah.
Ratchet and Clank.
Yeah, Ratchet. You're right.
Sort of game.
And I mean, it's not the best Donald Duck game, but
probably
that
not.
time was interesting because they redid that comic book. If you remember, they released, and this is only Fantonald is very much Norwegian. It's originally Italian, and it's a completely different take on Donald, but the remake was like a cyberpunk,
it's
futuristic,
like a weird cyberpunk
dark
sci-fi,
comic book. Yeah, it's very strange, and they had to reboot it slightly because it got too dark, and so that game came out after a reboot.
Yeah,
but I remember I was so into that comic book when it came out in 2000, was it 1999?
Yeah, it must have been. Well, yeah, the comic book. Yeah, probably around there.
Yeah, when they relaunched it, I mean, because Fantonald has been around since.
Yeah, but there's the cyberpunk sci-fi version.
Yeah,
with Glupus and yeah.
It's very strange, and I think most Americans, if they saw that and just saw what was going on, they would just be like, "What?" Like it feels almost like fan fiction-y, but it's an official Disney.
And there's this totally different visual style on it.
It's very digitally. It was digitally colored.
Yeah, digitally colored.
And with a lot of like hues. So it was a lot of greens because it was very Matrix inspired.
Yeah.
But you had all these color filters for the different places they went. It was like Alien, like was kind of purplish green when you were kind of like by the computers, and he has an English name. It's PK.
Yeah,
they
PK.
just call him PK.
Yeah. I saw that as well.
Because the video game, I think they call him Platyparius kineticus or something like that.
It's a really long name.
But I think PK actually is the Italian name, just shortened down to.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What is
and this is what
also...
Yeah.
No, I'm just curious. All the world of Donald Duck on PS2. Like I was just looking up PK, and I also see a Japanese release. This is called Donald Duck Rescue Daisakusen. Do you know what that is? Which one that is, Audi?
I don't remember. It's in my article somewhere though.
Because he looks happy on it, whereas on Going Quackers he looks very angry.
Yeah,
so
he is not happy on that one. But
it might be the same game. But
I think that's the one. Yeah, I think that's just the same game because they did do a PS2 release, which is different from the GameCube one, I think.
But isn't sort of the Japanese style as well on the Sony games? It's like Ratchet looks insane on the cover.
Doesn't he have like thick eyebrows or something?
Thick eyebrows, and he's like always smiling very broadly.
It's really interesting how all these Donald Duck games, so specifically these two, they all seem to have slightly different titles and cover arts and all.
Because that's another thing. Because I was talking to people from different countries about Going Quackers. It's like I'm pretty sure that game has like several different names in different regions and stuff like that. So
like I think there's like.
So I mentioned
Attack.
Quack
Attack. That was our name, which I think is pretty cool. But yeah. I had Quack Attack on N64 and game Dreamcast.
Yeah, I had it on the PS2 and I think on a PC build or a PC version. Or
there's a PC version.
Yeah, but
there we go.
Oh, there you go.
Going Quackers.
Yeah, DF Retro now, guys. Just
we have been thinking of doing some Donald Duck stuff, just because all my articles I still have them, and they are pretty similar to what DF Retro became anyway. Even though they're now over 10 years old. So
I would foresee we would essentially take that as a model and then add more like the technical details of
exactly.
Since there's so many versions, and you combine that together, and you got pretty awesome episode, I think.
We kind of did this as a test with Mortal Kombat and Final Fight, where John and I teamed up, and I basically did that kind of trivia and history portion research, and then John took care of a lot of the technical details because I
Yeah.
just can't stay awake to do that. Like he's and also he's so much better than me, so like why would I sit there and do this?
That
So
really, I thought those videos made a great combo of that. It
oh
was
yeah,
it
yeah,
was
it was a
wonderful dosage of history and tech, and like it was like the whole package. So
yeah,
love that stuff.
worked out beautifully.
Yeah, and this is what I'm talking about when I said I could probably just talk hours and hours and hours and take up all your time here. And so, just moving on a little bit here, it's I think we can skip one of the stuff that I was talking about. But yeah, circling back to what we said about like negativity and the stuff like that, just to bring down the mood from the Donald Duck discussion here.
Sure.
But like I see online on Twitter and stuff like that. John, you sort of have I don't know how to say this delicately, but you sort of have a way of voicing your being displeased by the way people are talking about video games and stuff like that. And
you can say that.
yeah, but I totally agree with you on that subject. It seems I'm I think we're very in sync on the opinions there.
That stuff gets me into trouble sometimes, but like I don't know. I just maybe it's foolish, but I was just talking about it today because we were looking. There's some article about like people making their brand and like I just
like a
can't,
personal brand.
I can't really fake that kind of stuff. So
no, but that's sort of one of the things that I really like about your stuff and the DF stuff, Digital Foundry stuff. Like you guys are enthusiastic about what you're talking about, and when enthusiasm is fake, you can pretty easily look at it and say that's not genuine. That's not the genuine article.
You can tell on those rare instances where we have to phone in something, which is usually like, oh, go cover this multiplayer loot shooter.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't talking about you, but I was talking about like more as YouTube, the YouTube environment.
Right.
There's a lot of like whether it's whether it's a video for again, I'm not talking about your stuff, but if someone brings up a video on a hot subject, whether it be Star Wars or it be Marvel or it be whatever it is, and people are like, yeah, I've been following this stuff for all my life and this thing is terrible, and it's just like they have to preface their opinion with sort of a declaration of being the biggest fan of this thing, and now it's terrible.
The funny thing I've seen is I saw some reviewers that got like access to certain big games early, and then they're like raving, "This is the greatest thing, guys! You won't believe what I'm playing." And then it comes out and it's discovered, oh, it has problems, not very good or whatever, and you just completely shift.
Yeah.
You see them shift entirely, and they act as if they were always saying it was bad or something.
Yep.
I see this a lot, and it's really weird. But that's when I like something or dislike something, I kind of double down on it, and that gets me into trouble sometimes.
Yeah, but I mean, if I dislike something, I try not to like talk about it too much.
No.
I'm not saying that
Except for some trends, maybe.
Yeah, trends are a thing, but just not maybe specific games and stuff like that. But it's there should be like, I can say my piece about a game if I don't like it, and I can say like, all right, this game wasn't the greatest thing in the world, and here's why. And but these are things that it's really doing well and stuff like that. But then then go quiet on the game. I don't need to come back and just try to hit that game one more time. There's only one game I'm doing that with, and that's Nier Automata. That's just because I get a kick out of seeing people stand up for that game, because people really like that game, and that's great for them. I didn't, but all right. So
nothing wrong with that, dude.
No. I mean, it just didn't jive with me, that game, and but yeah, it's I don't see the necessity to sort of bag on things, just repeat it and repeat it and repeat it, and that's sort of what I see happening on Twitter, because like if people with a big following says something is bad, then that following just gets it, like it goes down the ladder. It's just like, yeah, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad, and then all of their
Yeah.
followers start repeating it, and then it comes back to maybe like you, John, with Battle in Wonderworld, like you wound up liking that game at least.
I love it. I think
yeah.
it's flawed.
Yeah.
But I think it's a solid game, and I'm surprised with the negativity around that. To be honest, like I could see people not liking that style of game for sure, but it's the sheer veracity of it that has me utterly confused. I'm really not sure where that's coming from. I mean, to be fair, the demo was not great, and they actually did improve the game from the demo in terms of the basic play mechanics, but even the demo wasn't like that, right? So but it feels like people just like latch on to something and they're gonna throw it into the ground, but then people will hold that over your head. Oh, you're the guy that liked that game, you don't know anything. But it's like, all right, yeah, well,
yeah.
Too bad.
I mean that stuff flips so fast, because Jeff Gerstmann reviewing Twilight Princess, it's giving it an like pretty high score, all given, but like people aren't satisfied with that. That's not a high enough score for them, and
that's
usually
true. We encounter this a lot.
Mm.
And it's not just with reviews. It's just like if we're covering something like a technical details, just in one of the normal analysis video, and if something has issues, and we're not hard enough on it, people want us to be really hard on it sometimes. You know what I mean? It's like, they always have this like weird feeling of like, well, if you didn't slam this into the ground, then you must be bought and paid for.
It's
weird. I don't understand like why people want that so much, but I'm not going to give it to them. So,
and that's good. Audi, do you want to say something on that?
No, I mean, what John's saying, I think, is eloquent enough. But we deal with this quite often, and even Rich was talking about this on the last DF Weekly, where he was talking about the feedback on the Rocket League, and just how negative that was, and how it's just kind of like expected at this point that if you're going to talk about that, you have to bash it harder than the other did before you, type thing. But Rich just doesn't play like that. He's been around since 1990. So he was taking kind of a bit of taking the community to task on this a little bit, and just kind of like, hey, you don't expect this stuff, and don't this isn't fair. Here's what's fair. I'm gonna actually tell you the results, good and bad.
Yeah.
But I still saw a lot of the comments were just kind of like, oh, you must have been paid to say that, because you're not bashing it. And I was just kind of like,
that's the go-to I always see for anything. And
it's
it's fascinating to me, because I don't know what kind of industry people think that this is like, but no company's just gonna splash around money like that to have a random YouTube person like say nicer things about it. Like, what the heck?
I mean, last summer it was The Last of Us 2, and it's, I reviewed I reviewed that game ahead of release, and I gave it I think we used a 5-star system. I think I gave it 5 stars, or I probably did. And I
like it.
I stand by that. Great. And then I got that one, and I started reading that online. Like, everyone who gave this game a high score was paid and stuff like that. I'm like, if someone got paid, they didn't let me know.
That's the thing about the video game industry. I've been in the video game industry for 20 years, and I made no money. Like, this is the worst place to make money, no matter where you go. If you want to produce games,
you've been on the publisher side too. We've worked in this, or at least like releasing stuff, right? So
no, I worked on the publisher, developer, and now journal. Of course, on the journalist side, there's just no money anywhere. I keep looking for it.
No.
So
maybe it all goes to Bobby Kotick. That's
I mean, everything goes up, right?
It all funnels into him somehow.
No, so it's just that's a weak argument. Like, just
anyone
I wish
that uses
people
that argument doesn't understand how things actually work.
and
it shows their ignorance, basically.
Yeah, exactly. It's just ignorance, and it's too bad, because I I joined the video game industry because of the positivity I wanted to
Mhm.
create with it. Because I had grown up with video games, and
Yeah,
I knew what it could give me. I was not good at school, but I was very good at video games and other things. So it's like like I knew what I could do, and I knew the effect it could have on people younger than me.
Mm.
So I did that, and it's a shame that we reached this point where and I've been feeling this for the last 10 years, where it's just kind of the more negative you are, somehow the more reach you get, because
Oh
it's
yeah,
somehow
there
people sort
are.
of enjoy being miserable, and I'm
Yeah,
not
they
a
love it.
negative person.
They love it.
There's complete like cottage industries on YouTube, just like uh, angry, and then
Yeah, yeah.
and it's the portraits, or the, what do you call it, the picture on the YouTube video, all of them looks the same. I mean, it's
Right. Just snapping the disc in two or something. Like it's
it
just
caters to
so
an algorithm, and somehow that just bubbles to the top and gets like insane
because it
follower numbers. And
yeah, because I think people comment and that they watch those videos because they're curious. Well, what is he angry about? Whereas the positive
oh yeah,
video,
it
people I
plays
think
into
generally
us.
can some you said earlier, right? You had been you cleaned up your house today and watched our videos.
Mm.
And I think that our videos are positive, and you can kind of do two things at once because it doesn't require you to sit there and emotionally invest so much to be
Mm.
angry with them. And
That's
so
right.
whereas if you're angry and you're just like directly looking at the camera and cursing and saying like these are people are lazy and they don't deserve your money and blah blah blah, it makes you feel kind of like more
Mm.
riled up. And I think this is why there's such an algorithm on this. That's just my personal research, but
Mm.
I think it's awful just because as I
Me
said,
too.
I'm not a negative person. I'm actually quite positive despite the fact I have no emotions in my face. But I hate being negative. I hate complaining. I hate
Mm.
reading complaints. And when I don't mind feedback, criticism, it's great.
Yeah.
I love when people tell us, I enjoyed your videos, but the sound is too low or something like this. This is fine,
Mm.
or can you make this better? This is totally cool. Like criticism makes us better, but negativity doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, there needs to be room for criticism, but
Oh,
it
absolutely.
needs to be coming from a genuine place. It needs to come
Mm.
from if you spend all your time just like laser focusing in on negative stuff in games, and then that's what people expect of you, and then you start just doing that, and that becomes your shtick. It's
Yeah.
I think that's maybe easy to fall into for some people, and so I try to be conscious about that myself. It's like, I'm not gonna trash talk this game just because I didn't like it. I remember I played. All right, let's just say I played a game a couple of years ago that there's a very dedicated community for. I'm not gonna rile them up and get them to come back to me again because
It's crazy Frog
yeah,
Racer. He
no,
just doesn't want to say it.
yeah, it is. But yeah, and I wrote in my review, which I scored on the lower side, and I wrote like, maybe this just winds up being the wrong guy to the wrong game. Maybe this game just
Mhm.
absolutely isn't for me, and that's why I don't like it. Because like technically, I can see that there is some stuff to like here, but I mean, just I didn't find it enjoyable to play at all, and that's why I scored it low. And yeah, none of those people that contacted me read that paragraph. They read everything else, but they didn't read that paragraph. But that's how I see it. If I really dislike a game, then maybe that's just not the right game for me. It's
Mm.
I can only speak for
Well,
myself. And
that actually gets into an interesting topic. I mean, we don't really do reviews in the traditional sense,
no,
but there is this concern where, like, um, I feel like people are almost afraid to go outside of the general consensus these days because
Yeah.
fan backlash is
mm,
so awful that it's it's difficult. Like, and most reviewers I know, they still go out there and they share their thoughts, but like uh that stuff weighs on them,
mm,
especially if somebody that is going to score something that could be a big game lower than perhaps they think the average will be.
Mhm.
or they're concerned about that, especially because in embargo you usually don't know what other people are gonna
Oh yeah.
rate something. I see that all the time. It's always, oh man, I hope I don't know, but you always worry if you're the odd one out that it's gonna create all kinds of negative attention. You're gonna have to deal with that. Nobody wants to deal with that.
I
It's
remember when I was playing Death Stranding ahead of release, and I was like, I was playing the game and really enjoying it. And I was like, not everyone's gonna like this game, and this is gonna be like a game that you either really
See,
like or really,
I love that game, but the
yeah,
most fun I had with it was when we first got it, and I think
yeah,
Audi was
I was
visiting at
I
the
was
time.
yeah, I was there.
We put it in together for the first time, not knowing what to expect, and that first like couple hours was just like it was the
That
biggest
was
like
magic.
what on earth.
yeah.
It was so
And then
bizarre.
because I fall on the spectrum that like I didn't enjoy that game once it became a game. Because once you kind of have to piece all this stuff together, I think it was just kind of like it was a very nice large open world map,
Mm.
but it was just a disjointed kind of mission fetch and grab system
Yeah.
that eventually I went pretty tired of. I spent most of my time with that game building roads.
See, I think that gets into the whole thing about how to best enjoy it. I just like mainlined it, and I thought it was really engaging from start to
Yes.
finish. But I suspect if I had spent all that time building the roads, it would have totally
Be-
lost a lot of its appeal.
yeah, because I'm very much a person that I love lore. I love
Right.
reading and getting into backstories, and even if it's minuscule stuff, even if it's not official, I just love takes on these things. And when I was playing it, I went through every piece of like email and stuff like that you get in the game and message, and I did all the missions. And I just
Wow.
realized that like there's really nothing here. Like this is really it's weird sometimes, but it's also so stupid at times, which is a Kojima thing. But
Yeah,
like
I mean, it is.
you have that long ass cutscene with the lady, the Japanese girl meeting her love again, the girl
Oh
with
no.
the
No.
hourglass.
Mm.
Oh
And I mean,
no.
it's still that long speech and stuff. And I think it's hokey, but it's kind of funny at the same time because it's so
Yeah.
out of place. And that's
Yeah.
kind of the charm of it. But then when you read the actual follow up to it, it's like terrible. It's just,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
all like chauvinistically weird and like they
But
get
see,
divorced and it's just really bad.
the thing is though, is I still think there's a lot to love in that game, and
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
it's very flawed. But they were trying some new ideas to sort of solve some open world issues.
Hmm.
Like I always kind of said that that game made the game about the traversal. Like
Yeah.
most
That's
games are like here's point A, here's point B, and like everything cool that happens at point B.
mm,
Yeah.
So you get mission at point A, you go to point B, the thing happens, and you go back to point A, and everything in between is usually just like holding forward on the analog stick, and it's very boring.
yeah, because
And Death Stranding like doesn't have much that happens when you get to point B. Like sometimes it does, but usually
yeah,
it's
just
about like what it takes to get there, and I think that was really engaging because for the first time you couldn't just press up to go there. You actually had to like really navigate the terrain, and
mm,
it would kick your butt if you weren't well
Yeah.
prepared. And that I thought that was I see a lot of potential there, and I would like to see more done with that concept.
yeah, and that's sort of where I land on it. It's a lot of games. I remember when Red Dead Redemption 2 came out, and I was a big fan of Red Dead Redemption 1, but
Mhm.
for some reason Red Dead Redemption 2 didn't click with me. And
Oh, I'm the opposite. I
uh,
love two, but I wasn't too into one.
Yeah,
yeah,
I
so
like two better than one as well, weirdly enough,
Mm.
but
yeah, it's just because of what you were saying, John. Is like all the cool stuff happened at point B. There's a lot of just most mission starts at camp, and then you have to ride out for like 10 minutes or 5 minutes, basically.
Yep.
But I like to exaggerate. You ride out there, and then the stuff happens, and then something happens, and you have to go back home. And that's sort
Yeah,
of
yeah.
I really didn't like the back and forth, the back and forth, the back and forth. Well, while
I
in Death
I f-
Stranding, I really just like the story was the journey in a way.
yeah, I definitely think if I had plowed through Death Stranding like John did, like
Mm.
in that linear fashion almost, I think I would have had a much better impression overall.
Mm.
But with Red Dead, I really did enjoy just the setting and the characters for the most part. And my biggest problem with that was just like everything after you go to that island,
Yep.
like just kind of out of place. And then you have like $1 million in your pocket, but you still have money problems in the cutscenes. Like they probably
Yeah.
should have figured this out a little bit better. But
Yeah.
the gameplay is fun, and I enjoy that game a lot.
Mm. So yeah, the last point I had here was DF Retro. What your plans are with it? Like as I said earlier, I don't know if that was on recording or not. So we've been talking for a while, but the stuff that I really like is the sort of console for console breakdown of games and the long form DF Retro videos that you're doing. Most of them are long, but you've had stuff that goes up to an hour, and also just a lot of the games that you've touched on, John, with the DF Retro has been games that I grew up with in a way, almost like it seems scaringly, because when I talk about Soul Reaver to people, not a lot of people remember that game. And then out of the blue,
it seems so weird because it seemed like such a big deal at the time. But
Yeah,
you're right. A lot of people.
One of your videos just pops out, and it's like, oh man, I'm just gonna sit here and watch a video about Soul Reaver for I don't know, an hour or something like that, and that's rediscovering stuff like that through your videos has been a real treat, and I hope there's more to come from that.
Oh, a lot more. A lot more.
We can't really say too much now, but we have a game plan that will mean more of these are made on a regular basis. It got interrupted a little bit by the next gen console launch, and also that we didn't have a solid plan, I guess you could say. Like we're trying to come up with a way to make it more viable and more something that's like a commitment and that really can spend more time doing. So it's basically finding a way to ensure that I get to work on it more, because I haven't been able to as easily. But we're changing some things about the way we do stuff, I guess you could say, that to ensure that it becomes more possible. So that's, plus there's going to be the bonus stuff as well, that Audi and I will probably be doing, and some of the other guys will join in for that as well, I'm sure. So
yeah, I mean, there's man, we're kind of in an awkward spot because we're just at the cusp of kind of like having all this lined out and cleared by powers to be. So like there's just so much we can say, but we've been for months now sitting down figuring out how DF Retro can become more consistent and keep its quality, because that's one thing. It's it's easy to just say, oh, well, I want to see more DF Retros, and then you start production on 3 episodes, but you're completely burnt out. There's no real like way of scheduling this out, and then everything suffers from it. I don't think people enjoy this, and it's one of the reasons why we started doing supplemental stuff anyway. Was we started doing DF Retro Play and some other stuff just so we would have content made, but give us time to make.
It was
full
also
episodes.
kind of born out of the fact that I think we wanted to just talk about that stuff more, even during periods when it wasn't possible to actually do the full episodes, because those full episodes take a lot of time and effort, and they're not easy to put together, but I like doing them. But people say, oh, I want more of those big episodes, and so do I. And that's what we want to do. But it's been tough with other stuff because, I wasn't just there to do that.
No.
Right? So we still had to do the other stuff as well. So basically I'm finding a way to like lock it in so I can do more of this. That's we're trying to find a way, and now that Audi's also on board, that's going to help a lot, because then he's already contributed a lot to these episodes, but now it's a little more official capacity, I guess you could say. So
yeah, because at some point I was pretty much contributing to most of them in either larger fashions or just small things, but I was kind of involved with so many facets of Digital Foundry stuff at some point without being actually on board.
And for me, it was just it's more fun to work with a good friend on these types of things rather than just doing it by yourself, and that really gets me excited. So
right, it was
great.
Yeah, it's like a natural chemistry that happens, and then like things move smoother. And I think Rich realized this as well, which is kind of like we have something here, we need to take advantage of it. And it was 3 months ago, I guess now, that they started actually contacting me, and it's like, hey, what is it that you could do, and like, what do you want to do if we give it a chance?
We hit a weird point because I think at the end of the year over Christmas, I was like so burnt out and
Yeah,
so
yeah.
like down. I was just like complaining every day to people, and I was like, what am I even doing anymore? The audience is just they don't care. I don't get to do what I want. I'm seeing other people do their thing, and I was feeling really burnt out. And then
As a fan
just
of your
started
work,
thinking,
John, that was a tough time to see what you were going through in a way.
I don't
And
know. I would, yeah.
I don't know if I saw the whole picture, but I could feel it that it was it was
Yeah, it's true. I think everybody could kind of get that if you followed what I was saying, because
Yeah.
it was pretty obvious. Um, oh, hey buddy. So
So the fourth guest.
the
Yeah,
fourth guest just making a guest appearance before I continue.
Mine
Hey,
was
buddy.
mine is sleeping over there, but
All right. Good night, buddy. I got to get back to this. Okay. Good night. Oh yeah, but I guess it was just sometime after Christmas. I guess we were just. I had mused about this before, and I wasn't sure it was possible. And then, it's really hard to get to. The thing I've noticed with Rich is like getting those initial meetings set up is tough. It was tough for me too when I joined in 2013. He accepted me on, and then I was like, "Great, let's get started." Silence. I didn't hear from him for like 3 or 4 months, and I was like, "Did he forget me? Does he not need me in the end?" And then just out of the blue, it's just like, "Oh, dude, sorry, I've been so busy, and I really can see that now." And then we got started. But once you're in the door, it's all smooth. It's just that initial thing, and I was like, "All right, let's." We talked about the possibility, so I set up a meeting with Richard, and we all talked, and it just happened to kind of coincide with what he's been wanting to do, because especially with the Patreon stuff and like just moving forward on the community side, like Richard doesn't, he's not well tuned to it really, because he does things a certain way, and Audi's pretty well tuned to launching things like this and getting people involved. So it just kind of, since we already did a lot of stuff, it just kind of made sense, I guess, and it was a kind of a natural thing.
Yeah, because my strengths, I think, is very much in producing. Like, I'm a very good
Yeah.
producer. I
Yeah,
can
yeah.
admit this to myself. And just kind of like, because I'm very stubborn, that's one thing. So if I wanted to do something or think something is a good idea, you're not going to tell me no. Like, if you're going to tell me no, then you have to prove to me that it doesn't work. So you have to do extra work to prove to me that. And I think Rich kind of enjoys this part of me that is just kind of like, he doesn't really have to do that much because I have already done the groundwork to prove him wrong, which is a good start. So yeah, it just as John said, it coincided with everything being, because I was back here because of COVID, and just kind of, I have this extra time. I finished producing a few other projects, and just kind of, well, this is the pocket where I guess we can talk, because there had been, I think this conversation has come up a few times over the last year ish,
Yeah,
like just
off
kind
and
of like,
on.
yeah, this would be fun, wouldn't it? Yeah, and then it's always just like, well, it sounds fun, but as John said, getting that initial meeting set up is not always easy, because just there's a lot of, it's not just a matter of saying, well, okay, you're in,
Yeah.
yeah, like it's like
There's more to
GamerNet,
it.
yeah, there's a conglomerate to talk to.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, it took a little bit, but it's been super positive, I think, and the DF Weekly stuff is really the beginning of that.
That's
And that
a
was
great feature.
Yeah, and that was basically where I came in, because they needed something to. They kind of need to make something new in order to open up space for something else, because if you don't give that information out in some way, then it's going to lack. Then the channel has been lost something in order for John to do more DF Retro, or John and I to do more DF Retro. Yeah, but at the same time, you need to make sure that, well, if we need to make something, it needs to be in a way that doesn't kill us, that doesn't take too much out of us in a talk show or a news show. is something that they didn't have. It filled a lot of holes that they needed to plug, like a podcast, was one thing, and then news. That's the thing about DF, was that there was no avenue for them to give out news. And I
No.
think DF is the one place I would want to know what they think.
Yeah.
Like, just
Yeah.
as a fan,
Yeah.
it's just like, well, these guys are the most reasonable and educated people in the games industry, in the journalism section of it. So why am I not hearing what their opinion are, rather than, like, no offense to them, but like Destructoid. I used to be there, so I can say that.
Yeah.
But it's just, that's a blog basically that just pumps out news constantly. But that's just, it's not really much of an opinion. Even it's just a report came out saying this game is coming out.
Yep.
Let's see if it's any good. That's not news. Like, that's just like,
Exactly.
that's an echo.
Yeah.
Whereas for me, this DF Weekly show is so important that, like, well, I want to know what Rich thinks of, the news, and then I want to know what he thinks of Crazy Frog Racer 2.
Yeah, just speaking for my own part, when it comes to covering games, like I do, this isn't, as I've said, this isn't my day job, and I get like press releases, and then I see news popping up on someone else's site, and then it's like, yeah, all right, yeah,
I recognize that.
That's just
I used to do that
basically.
too.
That's just a repost of where that came from, and but
Yeah,
I mean, there's nothing bad about that. Content needs to be content, but it comes to a point where I'm like, I don't need to rush to a computer once I get a notification on my phone, because people are gonna get that from a million other places. So
they're probably going to get that through the newsletter anyway, through their email or through Twitter.
Yeah,
they're probably
yeah.
following the publisher. Like, so social media has kind of rendered the announcements kind of invalid, but because we have so much direct links.
And when it comes to the, like, more in-depth stuff, one of the things that I feel that I probably should be covering more is like Norwegian games industry and stuff like that. But Pressfire got that dialed up pretty good, and they're good at that. And so yeah, I get where you're coming from. It's hard to find out where's your output, where should the pressure be put.
On top of that, the weekly show is great because it lets us talk about some other topics that we might not have had time to make a video on, like, this patch came out, or this other version came out. Don't have time to make a whole video on it, but I can do a few quick benchmarks and spend 5 or 10 minutes talking about it.
Yeah, rather than spending a day or two doing a quick 10-minute video where you say the same thing 10 times over, we can just look into our webcams and talk 3 minutes about it on DF Weekly, and have the exact same information out there and be done with it. So it opens up so much more time for everyone. And I think this this is something I've spearheaded. Well, I tried to spearhead a while ago with DF. Was just like, I have this idea, but again, it was just like we had to get to the table before this could happen. And then when it happened, I think I've seen a huge shift we've done 5 weeks now of this, and every avenue we have has grown. And what was most important to me, actually, that I noticed since day one of working with DF, was that everyone on the team were funny, wonderful people. Like, there's not a single bad person in this team, and we all have our quirks, and just kind of like, we have our niches that we love, and we have our sense of humor that's kind of different. Me and Rich are fairly similar, but just those Slack chats and whatnot are so funny. Like, I laugh every day. And we weren't getting that side out in the Digital Foundry videos, because there's, we can't, like, I forced humor in when I work with John. It's like, are you doing a Crash review? And he's like, yeah. It's like, okay, I want to rant about Bubsy at the end, just because I can. But generally, the reviews.
The best thing we did was that Dragon Quest.
Spoof.
That was
the Batman 60 spoof, because John and I we were playing the Dragon Quest Switch game that came out.
11S, yeah.
11S something. And the battle music sounds like the Batman 60s fight theme. And I was just sitting there, it's like, this sounds like a Batman episode with Adam West. And we came up with that sequence there and then, and it was so funny.
It turned out great.
Yeah, and that was the kind of stuff that I want with the weekly, was just that people connect with with the core team. It's not even about I only show up here and there, but I thought it was so important that people saw the interplay between the core team, because that was great. And why aren't we seeing that? Because I think we're talking about positivity, right? If people see how much these people like working with each other, then I think there's even more of a connection for us to support them, to be fans of them, because
And
they're
sort of
not
a community will probably spring out from that. You know, it's
and it did. It did. We saw immediately on Discord that people were responding to,
People love it.
like, if there was a joke in the show, it's constantly repeated, and we talk about Crazy Frog a lot because that's what Rich will always be known as now.
And now
that
we
picture
have
of
Richard
him.
emojis in there. We got Alex emojis in there. And
Yeah, we got so many things, and that's just from 5 weeks, because people are like connecting to all this. They think it's funny, and because we're having fun, and that was the most important
Alex
part.
in the nano suit from Crisis. That needs to become a thing, I guess.
It will become a thing. Yeah, it will become a thing. Alex is prime material for these things. So,
Oh yeah.
but yeah, everyone is funny. Everyone is great, and it just opened up so many doors for us. And again, it's a hard thing to explain in words before you do it, right? Because you're basically saying by doing work, we're doing less work, and it makes
You
no
need a
sense.
proof of concept, and as you said, it's the being able to just talk about something. So because I know John probably doesn't want to make another video on Crash on the new Crash game. But
Is there
but if there's a patch, then you could just mention it in passing in one of those videos. Just a question about those DF Weeklies. Are they coming as a podcast version anytime soon, or are there a podcast version? Because I haven't found anyone.
So I think you can download the MP3 versions if you're a member on Patreon, because then you have access to the
site,
the site.
Oh.
So you can download them there, but we are setting it just requires a lot of checks and
stuff like that.
Yeah. So we actually are working on that. So, and that was the plan from day one. But we had to do a few shows just to get the rhythm and just the feedback, because if 10 people watched it, then we're not gonna set all that stuff up. But it's been a huge hit actually.
It's the thing. It's burning out my the battery on my phone, just having the video version and me going around doing stuff in the house, and then it's like
that's what. Yeah, exactly. I think we'll get it up there, because
I think podcast version
it'd be perfect for that.
Yeah.
Though you do miss out on the visual gags, so you got to tune in for what's in the box, Rich.
Oh yeah.
Next time that happens.
Well, we've been talking for over an hour.
It will happen.
Yeah. Oh, great. We've been talking for over an hour, and I feel terrible for keeping you so long. Yeah,
no, absolutely not.
It's fun. Just going quackers.
Oh
yeah. No, it's a lot of fun, so I don't mind.
Okay, but I think we can just wrap it up there, pretty much. And we've been talking so much about Digital Foundry. I'm guessing people know where to find you, but you have individual Twitter handles and stuff like that you might want to plug. So here you go.
All right, you can find me at Dark1X on Twitter. And of course, we're on youtube.com/Digital Foundry and Eurogamer.net/Digital Foundry if you want to find those sites.
Yeah, and you can find me on Twitter at PC98__98. No, wait, I got that wrong, didn't I?
Oh yeah, you got that wrong.
Oh, it's PC98_
Audi. Yeah, that's my name. Actually, that's not my name, but
I know that's not your name.
Yes. When I lived in Brazil, no one could pronounce my name in this 2005 or 2004. And I had to come up, so for 1 year of my life, I was named Jack. And I didn't like Jack. I don't look like a Jack.
No.
So, and then we drove an Audi, like the car. So I was like, well, that's similar. It's a woman's name in Norway. But
Audi,
that's fine.
At least, yeah.
So I adopted Audi. Yeah, I think Audi was a woman's name. I met at least one woman named Audi in real life in Norway. So, but maybe it's genderless. Doesn't matter. But that was why I adopted it. Was because in Brazil no one That was the only thing they could refer to that was close enough. It was like, that car? It's like, oh yeah, that's your name.
Yeah, I've given both of my sons very Norwegian names, and they're gonna have they're gonna have a hard time growing up because, well, at least my eldest, he has one of our special characters in each one of his names. He has 3 names, and everyone has an in it. So
Oh, okay.
that's
For the
luck, buddy.
I have a friend that has 3 kids, and every time his wife was pregnant, every day, this was in the 2000s, I would call him almost every day, and it's like, you're gonna name your kid Balthasar, right? And it's a Balthasar, and he's like, it's a girl. It's like, doesn't matter, Balthasar. We have an agreement, right? And he's like, no, I never agreed to this. It's like, put your wife on the phone. He's like, hello? It's like, it's name your kid Balthasar, right? And I did this for all 3 kids, and none of them are named Balthasar.
All right.
But I used to be a fan of Professor Balthasar on
Oh yeah,
Children.
I remember him.
That's the thing I do in my spare time.
You sound like a lovely friend to have, Audi.
Yes.
Well, I'm
You get good video games and good name suggestions.
Yeah. Crazy Frog and Balthasar. That'll just about do it for us here. You can find me on Twitter on @Andilon, but you probably knew that already. So
I already follow you.
Yeah, you actually do, and I appreciate that. All of my, I don't even know. I don't have a brand for tweeting, so I don't know. I can say specifically one thing that I tweet about. So, video games, probably. Yeah. Well, I'm terrible at signing off, so I'm just gonna do like this.